I want to ask you a bit about something we were talking about before. There's sort of a civil war of anti-woke stuff, I suppose, on Twitter. There are a lot of people. Andrew Doyle, for example, has just had to take his Twitter down because he got shouted at by people who were saying homophobic things to him because he platformed someone who is a trans woman. It's a whole mad world.
So why is that controversial?
Oh.
He deplatformed someone.
No, he interviewed Debbie Hayton, who was a man who is now identifying as a woman, and spoke to her. But people who are very, very far on the gender critical side are saying, why would you let this man...
So he, just to get this straight, he platformed a person.
A person.
We never got it. We had Deirdre McCloskey on at Nudge Talk. I don't remember any of that happening. This is getting wacko.
Yeah, what's going on with people's minds online? Is there? Yeah, I've heard you talk of a purity spiral.
That's not my phrase. I wish it were. But I can't remember. It's probably been mentioned by Chris Williamson and others. Certainly Rob Henderson would also be talking about it, where effectively, if you wish to signal your allegiance to a particular group, the only way satisfactorily to signal that allegiance is to take a more extreme than average position, okay, than that found within the group as a whole, okay? You see it among football fans to an extent. I mean, people who paint their faces, for God's sake, okay? I don't understand football, so I look on football as something purely anthropological and bizarre, okay? I've never really got it at all. And in the same way, you see the same thing with the footballization of politics, which is people effectively go to more and more extreme lengths to signal their adherence to a particular cause and hence secure their membership and possibly leadership of a group. And of course, what it leads to is effectively a feedback loop or a spiral where people become more and more Princess and the Pea about potential violations or potential. So it's effectively you hypersensitize yourself to demonstrate the extent to which you're committed to a particular cause.
Do you think there might be a biological imperative to that? I wonder.
It's certainly a biological imperative to membership of groups, and to and to them and us bias as well.
And then trying to root out whoever's not quite on your level and get them out the tribe.
And it's very important. I mean, it's also made problematic. I did a little experiment once on Twitter, which said, let's all try posting things on Twitter which are examples of measured opinion, okay? Now, there are two problems. One, it gets you absolutely no. So the one I tried was, I quite like Piers Morgan in small doses.
Okay.
Right? Okay. Which would also be true of people like Jordan Peterson. It would also be true of Jeremy Corbyn or what, It would be true of my opinion to, my opinion of quite a lot of people. I quite like them up to a point, but I wouldn't want to become wholly invested in their point of view. Okay. Now, first of all, it gets no traction. But there's another thing as well. It feels really weird writing it. You actually type this thing. Now, there's Rob Manuel. I don't know if you know him of Beta.
Yes.
He has wonderful things. There's Fesshole and there's a non-opinion.
That's right.
Which is opinions we hold which we're too embarrassed to actually share. And that's actually quite an interesting counterpoint because by the very nature that it's anonymous, you get people, and one of the people actually said, I'm something like a middle-aged social sciences academic at a left-wing university, but I really love Piers Morgan. Okay. Now, he obviously couldn't admit to that in his milieu because it would be enough to get him practically cancelled. But it is interesting that while you type something balanced on Twitter, you feel wrong. And it may be that you also feel frightened because you're going to get it from both sides. Okay?
Yes, and your side's not going to stick up for you.
So one of my complaints, by the way, about the issue of platforming, deplatforming, etc., is I would like to hear far more trans voices, okay, rather than people speaking on their behalf. In the same way that I think not unreasonably, a lot of people of colour kind of find it slightly irritating when you have white people possibly motivated by their own self-interest within their own particular, largely white milieu, seeking to take up the cudgels on behalf of some group as though that group can't speak for themselves.
Yeah.
Now, there are groups which can't speak for themselves, and there are groups which are underrepresented. Okay, I accept that. But nevertheless, I find, that understanding things from other people's point of view okay, is just a really important life skill. I mean, the worst mistake some of the worst things I've ever done. I mean, I got into a massive kind of case of road rage once, which was simply because I completely misunderstood why the person beeped. Okay, it was literally that. I was reversing into a parking space on a busy road and going backwards. And because I missed the last parking space on the left, as it were, okay? And the guy behind me beeped, which I took to mean, what the hell are you doing blocking the road? I want to get through, okay? And now I was going, how the hell do you expect me to effing park when I can't actually stop and reverse in? Because I'm a big believer in reversing into parking spaces.
Yeah, you must.
Going in forwards, that's just deviant,
yes.
Okay? And so in this situation, what I realised subsequently was that I'd absolutely had this fuming kind of argument, not quite argument. Fortunately, it never got beyond hand gestures. I suddenly realised he thought I was reversing towards him and was going to hit him and was beeping me to let me know he was there. It was purely a cautious kind of...
Have you seen the Larry David? There's a Curb Your Enthusiasm. There's an advert that keeps playing a commercial on the radio that has hooting. So he misinterprets and thinks someone else hooted him. Right. So then he hoots the car in front and the guy gets out and it's a whole big fight. And
absolutely
obviously
fantastic.
It being Larry David, it comes back at the end of the episode as it always does, like it happens again.
Someone I think reviewing Curb Your Enthusiasm, The Spectator, said that Larry David's a master of what's called, I think, the Chekhovian gun. And it all comes from playwriting, which is in Chekhov.
Yeah.
If you have a gun featuring somewhere on stage early in the episode, you know that it's actually going to come into play at some point later on, but you can't work out how.
Yeah, and it will end with him going,
I think it's absolutely magnificent, by the way. I think I think Curb Your Enthusiasm is absolute treasure.
It's amazing.
It's all the more precious because for reasons I've never understood, Brits never got into Seinfeld, did they really?
It's a very Jewish New York thing.
Is it that we didn't know America well enough when it first came on? It was very badly scheduled, but it was on BBC Two at some random time, which always kept changing.
I think we didn't know Jewish America. Which is very different to Jewish England, which is something I spoke with David Baddiel about. But the way that Jewishness has permeated American culture is something that I'm not sure could even happen in Britain in that same way. We have had your Simon Amstels and your David Baddiels and things like that, but it's not the same as Curb Your Enthusiasm and Seinfeld. It's very New York. People know Yiddish in America. An average American knows a bit of Yiddish. When I'm out in Wales or Bristol or the north of England and stuff, they don't know about chutzpah. Maybe they do. Comment if you know about chutzpah. I don't know. What you were saying about Piers Morgan, by complete coincidence, I was thinking about this morning. So first I had this weird thought about the way you get moved certain places when you're a journalist. So you're a journalist. I was imagining Hugh Edwards and Dan Wootton, who for non-Brits, that's a very serious presenter and a tabloid presenter. Mm-hmm. And I imagined when they were 20, they both had aspirations to be journalists. One of them got the job at the BBC and then was incentivized for years and years to be very serious and a little bit Welsh, but very posh and very proper and prim. And every time he did that, people said, well done, we'll give you a knighthood. And the other one, whenever he got a scoop, a tabloid scoop, was told, fantastic, you get a promotion and more money. 20 years later, they're two totally different people, and we judged the Dan Wootton one. Now, ironically, they both ended up in absolute mad scandals to do with, of course, their sexual appetites. But it got me thinking about someone like Piers Morgan, who I think plays it really well because, yes, he's a bit tabloid and shock jock, but he, as far as I can tell, was the only alternative voice, as in not necessarily the BBC or whoever it was, who was talking equally on the Israel-Palestine side to both sides in a very serious fashion and brought both voices to a huge audience. And I thought we can all sit here and go, oh, what a bastard, because he's quite sort of glib. But I thought he does quite a good job.